Welcome to Think Travel Leadership Circle, a podcast series where we talk to travel industry experts about the latest and greatest travel trends. I'm Hermione Joye, Sector Lead for Google Travel Asia Pacific. In today's episode, I had the pleasure to speak to Siew Hoon, founder of Web & Travel. Web & Travel is one of my favourite ways to stay plugged in to the travel community across Asia Pacific, be it through their conferences, news site or emails. Today I had the pleasure of putting Siew Hoon on the hotspot to understand her views on how travel will recover post-pandemic. Siew Hoon, welcome to Think Travel Leadership Circle podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and also for once to have roles reversed. Now, I don't believe you need any introduction in the Asia Pacific travel community, but for those rare people who are listening to our podcast and aren't aware of you and the work you do, could you please share a little bit about yourself?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm very, very honored, to be sitting here and to be grilled by you. Sometimes I have to introduce myself because I sometimes forget who I am, because we play so many roles in life. So my name is Siew Hoon and I'm the founder of WIT, which is Web & Travel. And we are a media and events site, and we sit at the intersection of travel, technology, and Asia, my three loves.
I think there might be my three loves too. It's certainly, I'm a huge fan of Web & Travel and the work you in particular do. And I'm really excited about the conversation today, so let's get started.
Yes.
Okay, so digital nomads. We've talked a lot about this, you and I, in different various platforms, and you've been talking a lot about that in the letters that you've been writing with your travel. Can you give me a sense from your view, because obviously, a lot of what we do at Google is very sort of consumer driven but insight driven, but you have a very much holistic overview of how the industry is playing out, what people want, and I'd love to hear your opinions about the digital nomads and how that has changed particularly as it comes to work and play, which I know is also two of your great loves.
Yeah, well, actually I have to say that, not sure I have a holistic view, but I definitely have a personal view of it. And actually, I got pretty upset during the pandemic because, I felt that the whole world got into my secret, right? Because I have actually been working from home and been a digital nomad for almost my entire career, right? As a journalist, I could really work from anywhere. So the world was my office, and then suddenly it became mainstream. Everybody discovered it, and I go, now everybody, now everybody knows what I've been doing, right? But certainly I think what the pandemic has done is sort of made it mainstream, right? Because before it was a niche thing, that certain people could only do it, the lucky ones that could do like creative work and, that was not really office bound and, you worked with your brain or services. So now it's become mainstream. So it's become a thing that the media has made out into like it's a new thing. It is a new mainstream thing. So,
yes,
so I think definitely it's fantastic, I think, because I've never, I used to have arguments, like philosophical arguments about people who would say, well, when I go to the office, I am this way, and when I travel, I'm this way and all that. But I really see us as one person, right? And then we channel different selves into the different things we do. So I never saw, like work-life thing in different compartments. So I think the way the pandemic has made us think is completely liberated us, right? I think from this artificial constructs that we put around our lives. So I think it's a great thing. And as for travel, I think it's opened up new opportunities for travel, right? The way companies now say, okay, we are going to have a 1 month vacation. So it's enforced on you. You can go and work from anywhere. Yeah. In the past, companies weren't that liberal, right? Now they have to because it's become a competitive advantage. Right? Mm.
And what do you think? I agree. I think it's interesting that you point out the force structure that was there or imposed. I do think that has diluted a lot post-pandemic. And the work play digital nomad is, as you say, mainstream. It was actually not new. There were plenty of people doing it, but it was a minority and it wasn't necessarily like positively viewed if you're at a big corporate or everything else. Whereas now it's kind of what consumers expect. For our industry, travel specifically, what impact do you think that has, both short-term and long-term, if any?
Well, I think we saw the impact, already during the pandemic where, people were staying longer stays, right?
Yes.
Renting places to work in and all that. And if you look at the Q2 results of companies like Expedia or Airbnb, you could see that the results were definitely skewed towards longer stays, right?
Yes.
Airbnb saw a 19% rise in longer stays for a month or more. So, and I definitely have also, even though I was a digital nomad, I am a digital nomad. What the pandemic has done is sort of made me stay in places longer,
Okay.
right? In the past, I would just flit in and out. I could go to Bali here, go to Phuket here, but now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to settle in one place, like the French vineyards, and stay there for 10 days and really get into the surroundings and the wines and the foods and the peace of working there.
So that's an interesting segue. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter about the rise of communities. Do you think that the two are playing off each other? Like, what's driving you ultimately, and what do you think people like you are driving you to stay longer? Because previously you could stay longer, but you chose not to. Is it the complexity of COVID? Is it well, actually, I'm not going to lead the witness. Just you tell me.
Well, it's all of the above, right? I mean, in the past, we could go everywhere and stay in short places because we could, right? But now, flights are difficult, and then by the time you get there, we were deprived of travel for 2 years. So therefore, when you get to a place, you just really appreciate being somewhere else because we were in one place for 2 years.
Yes.
And just being in one place. So I think for me, it's changed travel into one of doing and seeing, which we could because we were crazy and we could go in for one day for a conference and come back.
Yeah.
But it's turned into something that's, to me, about being there and feeling the place, And so therefore, it definitely then ties into what's around there, right?
The experiences.
Nature, communities, and therefore actually the places I have worked in post-pandemic has been really obscure places. I've been to Lee Su Lodge in Chiang Mai in the hills of northern Thailand, where I just kind of worked amongst the paddy fields, and there was a snake that actually showed up on the balcony as well, So
you learnt some new life skills while you were there.
Exactly, So, and I've picked actually very rural places. Mm-hmm. I went to Bordeaux. Yeah, I went to rural places. And because travel is not fully back, I just feel like this is the best time to appreciate a place at its best, right? Mm-hmm. So like the vineyards of France, China's not back, Japan's not back, Korea's not fully back. Southeast Asian travelers are not going that far to
staying close
Europe
to home.
yet, except Singaporeans,
and Australians.
Exactly.
We're not Southeast Asian.
And Australians. And so you really do have the place to yourself right now. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like this is a truly privileged time to travel because we've been through extraordinary times. Mm.
Yeah. And are you seeing for the industry, there's a lot of chatter about, so we've covered, if I'm listening to you correctly, you're saying that in the trends that people, we know for a fact, are staying longer. This is due to both inflexibility in terms of flights and demand around that, but also a crave to like immerse yourself in destinations that normally are very populous and dense and aren't right now, and take up that opportunity. When we talk about growth or new areas within the travel recovery, what are you seeing? There's a lot of chat around experiences. Do you think that's all going to be here for the short term, or do you think that's a fad? How do you think people are going to travel this sort of digitally staying longer, the next sort of 12 months versus the next 2 years? Do you have if you got your special crystal ball?
I wish.
This is what you normally ask me, so I can't wait to hear your answer.
Well, I wish I did. But, the thing is fundamentally the landscape has changed and fundamentally the infrastructure has changed, right? So if you look like a place like Singapore, where we never really had domestic tourism, and during the pandemic, really interesting experiences were created by all of us looking for survival, right? And then we really got creative. And so the fundamental structure of destinations has changed.
Yes.
Which then encourages inbound travelers to experience more of a destination in different ways than they used to, because now they have the capabilities, and the services to do it. So I think that out of every sort of extraordinary crisis, right, comes a moment of disruption, and then you will have extreme behavior, and then it will settle in, but the curve will be higher already. So I think what will come out of it is, yes, it's a short-term thing, and everybody is like, revenge travel is still there for a lot of people who still haven't been able to travel. We are lucky.
We are.
We got out in November, but there's still a lot of people who haven't. I mean, I was speaking to a girlfriend in Thailand, and she's just making her first trip to Europe now, So I think this extreme period will be there, and we will enjoy the fruits of the extreme behavior, but I think it will settle down, but it will be higher than before. So therefore, I think it's not a fad. It is definitely a trend that will just basically,
and the trend, like to articulate the trend is that people will continue to value their travel experience.
Yes.
In fact, probably value it much higher than they did pre-pandemic. Stay longer. And want to...
That's for leisure travel, right? We're talking about leisure travel. Definitely.
What do you think the trend for business travel is then?
I think for business travel, I think people just want to get out there and make money and save their business. So I think if you look at the flights from Singapore to KL and to Jakarta, I mean, the airfares are so high. It's full, it's full all the time. I'm flying to KL on Firefly, and it's full, full of small SMEs, we call them, right?
Yes.
Entrepreneurs who just have to get out there and make those business calls, right? So I think people will do whatever it takes to keep their business going. And, we're not out of the woods yet, right? I mean, we've come through 2 years, and, it's not all sunshine and rosy, right? We're going into a series of challenges. But, that's business, right? So we all have to do what it takes to survive. And I think business travelers are going to get back, have gotten back on the road, and will continue to do so.
So we're going to make the profound statement that business travel is back?
From my perspective, I see it back. I don't think it's back in sort of in Asia in the corporate sector, the big multinationals, because I think in Asia is still some restrictions here and there. But when I'm in Europe, my gosh, the corporate travel is back, and in the US as well.
And has the way, we've talked a lot about leisure, but what are your opinions on the way people will travel for business? Is that going to be same as pandemic, or do you think there'll be prolific changes?
I think for the short trips, like, the KL Jakarta, KL Bangkok, where you just have to do those business trips in and out, those won't change, right? But I think people are definitely, I hate that term, but, I have always blended my, whenever I had a business trip, I would always look at what I can do for pleasure. Like, what's the point of traveling if you don't have fun, right? Even if you have to work, and work should be fun too. So I've always looked at, I'm going to Amsterdam for a conference. What can I do before and after? And I think, again, what I used to do maybe was a niche thing, but now I think it's mainstream, right?
Yeah, I think, I think what you're saying here, and I agree, that people are going, when they travel for business, if they have some downtime, they're actually going to take that opportunity rather than sit in their hotel room to find an experience, to understand that community and dive in deep. Right?
Yeah, and it's so much easier now to actually experience a place, thanks to, Google Maps. It tells you where the traffic is.
Did you just give us a compliment? Can we get that on the record?
Hey, I use it, right? As a traveler, I don't get lost with it. What was I saying? Yes. So it's so much easier to enjoy. I think technology has definitely empowered, people to, women travelers especially, to just get out there, right? It's not so much fear now and lack of confidence, and I think, like, for example, I'm organizing my conference, in October 3rd to the 5th in Singapore. And most of the speakers who are coming, or most of the delegates are really saying, hey, what else, Siew Hoon? Like, I'm a travel agent, I say, hey, Siew Hoon, what can we do, before? And I'm now spending 7 days versus they would only come in first day and I'm out, I'm only be there for my speaking engagement and I'm leaving. But now they're saying, oh, what else can I do before and after now? So we're definitely seeing that change in behavior. But I think it's again that extreme, right?
Yeah.
Because
first movers go and have an experience.
Yeah, and it's the first gathering for a lot of the speakers for the APAC region to come in.
Yeah.
So everybody's planning their own little get-togethers.
But do you think that when it comes to business travel, they'll travel for the same? Like, are people now traveling for conferences? Do you think that they've got that same mindset, or is it more for offsites, or is it more for SMEs? Like when the corporates are traveling, are you seeing the same demand for your conferences as you did, or is there nervousness around that? And are companies willing to pay for that exposure? And when I say that, I mean from a T&E perspective.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding for us in October, because we still, it's only 2 months away. But certainly if I look at North Star's, events, we run events in the US and we run events in Europe. I mean, attendance is way up.
Wow. Way up versus pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way up.
And that's in-person attendance.
Yes, in person, wow. Right? So maybe the bigger companies are not coming out as much, and they're sending fewer people. But, the startups, the entrepreneurs, all those, they are sending people. And I think, people have missed being with people.
It's the networking, right?
Yeah,
and we constantly get feedback when we run events that people want to network because they've been starved of that on top of having that in-person experience.
Yeah. And I think in a physical conference too, like even you and I are speaking here and we're going to be in a podcast or a video. It's nothing like a live conversation that's in front of you to spark an idea. I mean, I'm not saying maybe our conversation here will spark a few ideas, right? But there's nothing like having a live conversation on stage and you're listening to the person, you're looking at the speakers, and that's when, something happens. There's something that's physical that happens, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's what a physical conference brings, that.
Well, I think, I mean, if I can interpret what you're saying, and it's a great point, the conference allows fluidity of conversations, because otherwise, if you're setting up a meeting, it's very structured. You don't bump into someone on Hangouts or on VC. You have to find that time. But in a conference, you bump into someone and you do have that opportunity to brainstorm and have a conversation or come across information that otherwise wouldn't have shared, and actually we've been deprived of. So we've talked about business, we've talked about leisure, we're talking about the rise of experiences. Let's talk about the consumer. Digitization, hot topic. I mean, it's clear there's a digital dependency. We were just talking about maps, everything else. But what are your views in terms of what is fundamentally changed and that businesses need to be aware of in terms of how the consumer behaves when it comes to travel? Also, what are your views around some of the hot topics when it comes to live streaming or social commerce? Can you share a little bit around that?
Well, you probably know more about this than I do, so I'm feeling a bit nervous here because you got all the data,
Well, that's a first for our relationship, so that excites me.
This is intimidating, but well, I mean, again, I think what was a very niche thing, or the digital consumer in Southeast Asia or Asia became mainstream during the pandemic, right? I mean, I think the pandemic...
You mean digital, is that what you mean?
Yeah, digital behavior. I think the pandemic...
And digital as it pertains to travel, or just digital in general?
Just digital in general, right? And travel is only a subset of digital behavior, right? But anything that changes consumer behavior impacts travel, mm-hmm. right? So as with everything, the pandemic turned everything mainstream, right? And I was I was interviewing a startup in the Philippines that just does social commerce, and he was encouraged to do it because of what happened during the pandemic, and all demographics went online because it affected all ages. So yes. You have not only the young but also the older generation like me, going online to do everything, yes. basically. So definitely, I think...
I think a perception shift of digital as well, right? Previously, there was an uneasiness around digital in terms of making bookings and things like that, whereas now, because people had to just get comfortable, it doesn't have to be a small value basket side. People are buying cars online.
Yeah.
They're willing to buy flights from mobile, right?
I think it's two sides coming together, right? I mean, for the consumer, it became a necessity.
Yes.
Like you had to go digital to live, right? And then for the industry, they had to adapt to this, right? So I think the two sides came together to create this sort of almost not perfect, but near perfect universe of digital consumption, right? So that's here to stay, and that can only get better. I think, the consumer is going to get smarter and the industry is going to get smarter about, so this has become mainstream. So there's no turning back. I think once you're hooked, talking about digital dependency, right? So social commerce is somehow, it's very big in the Philippines and Indonesia. We've seen just startups just focusing on social commerce and basically empowering, like this startup called Triber. I mean, they basically empower 5,000 community sellers, and anybody can be a seller, right? And say, okay, I can go and do live streaming and sell durians or sell biscuits or whatever. So I think this is a very interesting phenomenon, and I think.
So is it like sorry to interrupt, but just so I can visualize it, is it like a market, but a social market online? Like if you're going to walk to the food markets,
yes,
they've created that visual experience.
So they create an event, and then you go in there, and then there's somebody selling, whatever they're selling. Right?
Is it a metaverse?
No, I mean, I think metaverse is like, I live in the metaverse, right? I mean, the book is the original metaverse. I don't know. I think it's too many definitions on the metaverse, but it's not. It's a virtual. Yeah. It's a virtual marketplace, right? And I think what the pandemic did was to kind of blur the lines between virtual and physical. There were moments when we didn't even know what was happening had been happening virtually. We thought it would happen physically, You've seen companies like Trip.com, you've seen companies like Traveloka, those markets in Vietnam as well, I think, and in Philippines, you can now sell attraction tickets. You can sell dining vouchers, right?
So it's expected, right? Yeah, I expect to be able to buy my experience online now.
Yeah. So it's an extension of, right now, social commerce. You can sell all those vouchers, right? And attraction tickets in the Philippines. People are buying, attraction tickets to the theme parks and all that. So I definitely think that you will see, a shift of travel to social commerce, and then the short form videos, for example, too, coming in and all that. So different methods of selling. I think, in the past, we sort of like targeted consumers, well, maybe not targeted, but we marketed in kind of a more mass way. But now we go where the customer is, right? And the consumer could be in a little niche fishbowl, and we can actually go to that fishbowl and then fish for that customer, right?
So digital is a necessity.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, as I said, once you're hooked, And look at what happened with restaurants now, right? Restaurants also went digital in a huge way, and now we can scan QR codes for menus, we can order, we can pay, we can split.
Cashless.
Yeah, we can split, and so there are lots of startups now that are offering all this, So I think we it cannot be reversed. This behavior cannot be reversed. It can only go forward.
Yes. Yeah, that's really interesting. So just taking a pivot on that, I mean, we've talked about a little bit about the revenge traveler, and that is definitely,
Are you still in revenge traveler mode?
I think I'm still a revenge traveler, Siew Hoon, yes. I booked my trips all the way up to July next year. So I'd say I'm still leading that flame, okay. And probably will continue to. I mean, I love it, and I value it now more than ever, and the opportunity to get together with loved ones, and it's a priority for me, both financially and for my spare time, because I think that's where the memories are created, and it's something I was starved of.
Yeah, and I think that you're not the exception, because when I know we are gonna.
I'm mainstream too now.
Oh yeah, no. we are all normal now. We are all mainstream, because I think I mean. Okay, I tend to be very optimistic about, and that's why I think everybody who works in travel is an optimist.
Well, you have to be after the
otherwise you wouldn't be. But I think people like us, or our customers, have really a newfound appreciation for travel and what it meant in their lives, and also. as a economic power. We hired a lot of people, we employed a lot of people, we generated a lot of positive income, and that went missing from the world. And I think it gave the world an opportunity to miss us. And so, now that there's this newfound appreciation. And when I speak to my girlfriends, I hardly actually see them anymore, right? They're off 2 months to the US, they're off to Australia.
I'm glad it's also for you as well.
It's mainstream now.
It's mainstream. It is. It's very interesting, and I think I agree. Everyone's sort of out and about, and I think part of the reason, personally, I am so keen to, lock things in. Well, I mean, and that's my human nature, but also is that, we haven't even seen, in my personal opinion, the tip of the iceberg, right? As you mentioned, China isn't open, Japan isn't open, and Korea isn't properly open, and they are huge global feeder markets. So I don't see the supply-demand issue going away anytime soon. What are your opinions? I mean, the cost of travel at the moment is extortionate. Now, it's a perfect storm. We've got school holidays. It's peak season globally. And there's been a supply issue as travel companies are getting back together. What do you see the 12-month view of this? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think the disruption is here to stay. I think the pains are here to stay, but better the pains of growth than the pains of zero growth, right?
Yes, true.
Not zero growth, but zero. So I think, we will learn to deal with these new pains in different ways, And I was reading an article today on Ryanair, the Michael, and saying, those days of cheap fares, the £10 fares are over. For now, and all that. And maybe that's a good thing, right? I mean...
Why would it be a good thing? Who's it a good thing for?
Why
would it be a good thing? Who's it a good thing for?
I don't know, because travel isn't really back yet, and so we should appreciate travel, right? And maybe it shouldn't be so messed right now.
Yeah.
It gives us more time to sort out the mess that we created,
Yes.
So... we were in a coma for 2 years. It gives, we cannot just get back and walk again, right? I mean, have you ever had an injury where you had to learn to walk? It takes a few months, right? So I think the industry is learning to get back on its feet, and the bad stories will always hog the media headlines. But there are, for every bag that's lost, there's 10,000 bags that weren't lost.
Yes. Yes.
So, I tend to look at the 10,000 that weren't lost, right? Rather than the one bag that was lost. But I think we have to learn to live with this pains of expensive prices and all that. But at the same time, I feel like consumers are prepared to pay for those.
Yes.
Those who can afford
expectations
are prepared to pay for those, right? Rather than maybe, hopefully, rather than buying that handbag, they say, I will pay more for this experience.
Okay, so as we wrap, I just have a few, if we can summarize on this cost of travel. Do you think there has been a change in business dynamics for airlines and hotels that are driving the cost as well as the demand and supply issue? Or do you think it's just a supply and demand issue? Which side of the fence are you sitting on?
I think it's the industry. Well, I guess, they're taking advantage of it in a way, right? But at the same time, they're also realizing, hey, maybe they don't have to open 100 rooms. They can keep 50 rooms. They have fewer staff, but they can bring up the yield, right? So It's all about, to me, market dynamics, right?
Yes.
And if you're running a business, you want the business to run profitably because you've sort of suffered for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be give and take on both sides right now. I think that customers have to expect, not to expect too much now when they travel, but to go and do the things that give them joy, right? Things that give them joy are free, actually. You can go out and go for nice walks. You don't have to be served all the time by a butler and all that. I mean, I don't know.
It's good advice.
That's kind of passe anyway, And I think the small independent hotels suppliers, to me, have done a really good job of managing customer expectations, right? So when I was in Amsterdam, I stayed in a boutique hotel, which was really made for Asians because it's really small. But I was getting emails from them all the time and say, due to the pandemic, we don't have enough staff. I hope you don't mind if we clean your room every 3 days, but if you do want your room clean every day, let us know and we will, so those were little messages that just sort of made you feel, hey, yeah, I need to be more respectful. I need to be more understanding as a customer. So I think, I think it's got to be give and take on both sides.
So that's a very good example in terms of, that they've set their expectations up front, not once you arrive. And there's nothing worse once you arrive to then be told, oh, I'm not having, a cleaner for every 3 days. Versus if you go into it knowing you're like, okay, that's what I expect. And I will manage it. Yeah. But when you get that surprise, no one really likes those type of surprises. Everyone loves an upgrade, but no one likes a downgrade. And inflation, this has been the number one question I've been talking to my clients about and things like that. What do you think it will, what is your opinion in terms of what inflation will do, the rise of inflation to our, are we in recovery mode and will we be able to rise above it and still recover with inflation? What is your sort of soundbite on that?
I think recovery will be muted by inflation.
Okay.
Right? But the ones that, as I said, who, if you have to weigh your priorities and say, do I spend this on this, people will still, I think, veer towards spending on travel. And
so they'll make sacrifices in other areas. And do you
think so?
Inflation will impact the industry according to region? Do you think there is any differences in terms of the impact of inflation in APAC versus EMEA or the US?
I don't know. I can't answer that, Hermione. That's way above my pay grade. I'm not an economist.
I guess we'll have to wait and watch and see then. Well, Siew Hoon, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And have a fantastic day and enjoy your travels. I will be watching from afar.
Thank you. See you on the road.
I will.